Okay, I'm ready. We have another one. So this is our Willys wagon. Been quietly working on this, and it's time before we get too into this that we talk about what we're doing here and what this thing is, because it's gonna be something very potent, and it's a good idea for us to look at it. Let me give you a brief history on this. I had a client contact me about doing some work on their Willys. They had this beautiful, you're gonna like, one of you guys is gonna trip on each other. You gotta look down before you. Hank, you gotta be more aware, dude. You're gonna get stepped on right now. So Dan hits me up about doing work on his Willys. He's got this thing he's been building for a while. It's a Willys wagon. If you haven't noticed by now, I love SUVs and I love long roofs and wagons and anything under the sun like that. Proportions on wagons and long roofs make all the sense in the world, especially when they are modified with complementary proportions of bigger wheel openings, wider stances, just profiles. And wagons and long roofs and SUVs, that's the world to me. So Dan says, hey, can we put something together for my Willys? Like, can you make it awesome? Put your touch on it. I look at this thing and it's not this one, it's a different one. Very Gravedigger-esque, big lift, you know, old V8 engine, pretty period style fabrication, you know, uses of tweed, stainless polished pieces, just very cool piece for what it is. And we start talking about putting a chassis under it. Then it turns into, Dan, you know, it's one of those things, Dan goes, he's like, I think it's a little short, the wheelbase is a little short. And when I'm looking at his Willys, it's like lifted, so it doesn't look that short. And then I'm like, no, I think it's gonna be fine. I go out and measure it, it's 108. The wheelbase is 108. Perfect trophy truck for me, for my liking, 124 to 126 all day. Don't give a fuck, that is the prime recipe. If other people feel differently, that's fine, that's what I stand on. Vivian's 124. So then I'm like, all right, there's an opportunity here. We need to stretch this Willys. On top of that, they are so goofy. When you look at, I'll hold it up for you. This is the original cab. And I don't know if you can get a good read on like proportions, right? And I'll set like this chopped up thing side by side, but I go, okay, well, if we want to we were going to settle for 120. I'm like, all right, that's 12 inches of lengthening this body. And then you got to do it particularly where it makes sense and it looks like it was supposed to be there. Because if you just stretched, 6 inches here and 6 inches there, you're going to see it. And so you have to divide it into proportions that make sense and chunks that make sense. And then I go, dude, the height on this thing is so goofy. Plus there's 6 inches or so of roof bubble after the drip, on the windows. So the real estate after the drip rail is massive. So I go, all right, I said, I talked to the client, we should chop this thing and stretch it. We're gonna get something amazing. If we chop this and stretch it, it will be like this sinister ranch wagon, nasty thing, war wagon. I talked to the client, I say, hey, we shouldn't cut up your perfectly good, almost running Willys. Bad move, let's get it together. Someone else will enjoy the shit out of this thing. I've done this path with so many vehicles. Let's not do it, the writing's on the wall. So we go, okay, cool, that's the good idea, we'll put a motor in it. The other Willys, if you guys are interested, it's for sale. If you want to contact me, it's got a 383 stroker, fresh blueprint motor, fresh wiring, AC blows cold, badass truck. 4L80, all the stuff. We prep that thing, we'll get rid of it. you know, he can just sell it, not attached to it. It was a good time of his life. We move on to this special project. We go, all right, we're going to find a donor. We need to get something that the rust, if it's rusty, it's fine. It just needs to be rusty where it doesn't matter. You know, so I start looking on Marketplace. Okay, you know, and I find this wagon and I like, okay, wheel openings don't matter because they're going to be fucking massive. You know, like a lot of this stuff is not going to matter as long as we got the bones. This is where it gets into, Colin makes this stretch table for us, kind of like a chassis table, but it's just something that stays true. We can put the body on here. It's built to the exact length we need to have it and the width to support the modifications. Some big things in my career that I have always wanted to tackle are doing a full clay sculpt body on a car and chopping and sectioning a hot rod. That's like something I've always wanted to do my whole life. So this year we're doing both, and it's so huge to me, and it's, you know, those are the opportunities. You know, like I talked on the intro of our transition to the ranch, I'm getting older. These cars can take 1 year, 5 years, more. That's huge chunks of your life. And then I go, okay, how am I going to contribute? Like how can I make every single one of these count to the highest level? Or I'm dedicating my life into this project, like this legacy. They need to count. I don't want to do basic shit. I don't want to just do normal fabrication. I can't do it. I'm plagued by not being able to. On the other end of that, I'm fortunate enough, I have clients that believe in us and they believe in the vision. And for something like this to come about where I have the opportunity to refine and hone a new skill set out of this and learn how to not form metal, but shape metal and move metal. Because that's what I'm doing. I'm watching this thing, even with a hammer and dolly, and I can watch it. I can do different things that give me different results, even by the body work on this. So we take on the chop. How are we going to do that? That sounds daunting. Okay. Colin and I are spitballing. He's like, dude, I think what we should do is print out some pictures and just literally cut it, like with a utility knife, or cut it with a razor blade, drop it down, see where it wants to move, get as much of a 1-to-1 scale side view as you can, and at least it's going to start giving you some ideas of how to proportionally make sense of this thing. Sounds awesome. So this thing was goofy. The other thing we signed off on, and these are just my old prints from weeks ago, that's your stock. Now you got to let me put this one together because it fell apart. What I did is I started sectioning this thing. And it's not like I can't do this in Photoshop, but I needed that hands-on experience of moving puzzle pieces around to get this result that we needed. So what you can see is tons. You see a normal wagon, and then you see something. I'm like, that's how it should look, of course. Drawn out, pulled, compressed, like, wow, badass. The scale on this is probably a 5.5 inch chop, meaning removing portions of the pillars to drop the roof down 5.5 inches. What we have, so let's go through that. So right now we have a chop on the pillars. What we also have is this window got moved forward, and then I added mass all where this D pillar is. Let's look at it really quick. So A pillar, B pillar, C pillar, D pillar. The original Willys, stay here, has this little teeny mass of pillar back here. And when you look at like a lot of modern SUVs and stuff, they use this portion to get a lot more mass and real estate in. So that gave me, you know, there's 4.5 inches of chop down. Then there's 17. There's 17 inches total all the way through this car. That bumps us to 125. This is full trophy truck spec now. So, you know, all the modifications for the body are simply for functionality. But what it did is it transformed this thing into like this wagon thing. And it's huge. And so all of this is my first time doing body work. I had Pete Watkins come in from Dexterious Engineering. Pete's been on like overhauling and worked for Fat Fender Garage in a couple places, and he's one of the guys that knows how to shape metal. And I had him come down to consult with me on how to do some things and just to call it a crash course. And then a lot of this has just been delegating my time into learning and making things count. Every time I'd work something here, I would find great results, and which hammers to use, which dollies to use, you know, prep lining panels up when they get tacked, you know, the amount of weld you use, the heat you use. It's a lot. This whole dynamic is so much more different than forming metal and building chassis and plate work and welding. It's its own thing. And to pivot into that, it's been so rewarding. So I want to really talk about what this project's going to look like and just get you guys up to speed. While we're working on everything else, we're also working on this. The spec for this, you know, I'll just lay this out. So Willie's Wagon, chopped 4.5 inches, stretched 17 inches. Obviously the hood is going to be a prominent figure on the stretching. I think there's 7 inches in this hood, and we're also refining the part line to be complementary to the rest of the car. Jason Hurd, or International Race Car, Y-frame, full plate Y-frame, integrated rear pivots, integrated lowers, uppers, fabricated, all chrome alloy TIG welded plate, fabricated lowers, 70-75 billet uprights, billet J-arm, 60-inch billet trailing arms, 4-inch trophy truck housing, heat treated, 3-piece with welded trusses, king shock package, 4-inch bypass, 3-inch coilover, 4.5-inch bypass, 3-inch coilover, 2.5-inch bumps, GM Performance 632 big block, 1,000 horsepower, naturally aspirated. We're going to leave it. That's it. You know, 4L80 with an underdrive, full Colhane build, paddle shifted, 3-seater, AC, all the stuff. It's going to be tight for 3 seats, but it's going to fit. This will have a spare. It'll have to go outside. And then, you know, what we're going to do is the whole reason I'm doing this stuff right now is I got to pull off the Range Rover. I have to jump over here. I have to prepare all of the body, because once we get that platform where the chassis is, and how we're getting it from Jason is turnkey. So it's going to have like his hubs, all big trophy truck hubs, Stella Tech 6-piston rotors or calipers front and rear, big rotors, just all complete package. So we don't have to worry about any of that stuff. It's ready to go. And then we build the entire rest of the chassis into this body and into that platform. One of the other things to note is part of the stretch was the doors. This made the most sense. The Willys doors are really small. They're at least 5 inches shorter than this. Dan is every bit of 6'5", 6'3", 6'5". So I had to be careful. I couldn't chop too much. I would have chopped more. It would have looked more like the piece together reference we have, but it just headroom wise, I had to go in there and really space it out to make it safe and make it make sense. So, you know, having this door as a stretch factor, it helps with, you know, I'm trying to get as much packaging as I can through here, but plus he can get in and out of here a lot easier. So right now what you're looking at is, this is a set 125 wheelbase. What that means is Colin's got this thing where it's just fixed. It's, you know, these tires are in harmony with each other. and I can just move this around. And that's really how I start to feel the proportions, because we know we're gonna run a 40-inch tire. We know we're gonna have a 125-inch wheelbase. So everything's set here, where then I can go, okay, what's this look like? Is there too much, is the tire too pulled out in the front? Is there not enough room after the tire towards the rear of the car? What makes sense? And so this is just a nice sliding scale where we can figure it out. As far as the track width, this is about right where the width is going to be from outside of tire to outside of tire. To paint the vision here, right now it's all getting the chop and the stretch dialed in. A lot of this doesn't matter. That's why I didn't even continue here, is because you have to think, okay, it's still going to be a luxury pre-runner. It's still going to have huge compression zones. So this tire, in all reality, even as it sits, it might go past the window line. What does that look like? It's this whole vision I see. We're going to keep the jerry can or some kind of derivative of this, but we'll definitely put a different bracket in here. And what I want out of this thing is to have the air filters and the intake filter runners, the tubes, they will branch off per side and they'll go into the back side of this jerry can. This will be perforated, not seeing the dust zone, but perforated out the back with a big filter element in here. So you'll be able to you'll have your air filter living in what looks like a jerry can, but it's just a visual. And it's functional as a filter where it's pulling air and it's pulling it from the backside so it's not head on with the dust. So those will stay. What happens under here? This is all header collector. So this is a 632 big block. It's probably going to be a 2 1/4 primary. I'd assume all of these guys are going to run through here like a Viper or an old Cobra. And then boom, you're half. Let's step back. Now, before that exhaust does what it needs to, old like Dick Tracy style cars. I don't have a huge knowledge base on them, but cars from the 30s. Or the 40s with running boards. A lot of those old panel wagons, or think about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right? All the guys that would get out of there. What were the guys that would kill the tunes? You remember those guys? They were terrible. And they had the one guy that would dip them in the bucket. The weasels, dude. Those guys with Tommy guns, the weasels with Tommy guns. They would be in like these panel vans and they'd have these running boards, and then they would transition into this fender. And that's the same concept that I'm going to pull off here. All steel fender with an integrated running board. And then boom, steel fender up here. Obviously the deck height on this fender is not a thing. So what will end up being here is this fender will go past sea level here of the hood, and it'll be higher than the hood. It'll be completely functional. It'll stay on the car. It never has to come off or be removed or anything like that. And it'll all teardrop, and it'll have the same kind of flow as what we have going on, except back here, instead of just being body, this will have its own fender, and this will draw up. And then instead of it drawing it all the way back down, we'll probably lead off right here, and we'll have this massive fender all coming through here. I think there's a really good opportunity to get rid of these tail lights and put something really cool that's maybe staggered into the bottom of the fender. But that's the thing, this thing will be like a 100% hot rod trophy truck. I know there's been derivatives, but this is proportionally, I don't think there's anything like this. It's all good, it's just another unique project. But I think there's going to be a serious heritage with this, because it's got these hot rod proportions. Back to the exhaust. So now that we covered the running boards, what I'd like to see here is, on top of that, what the running boards do for us is they give us a little more real estate and packaging. So if we're at the door line here, the bottom, then we're adding another maybe 3 inches of running board. And then when the headers come out of this area, there'll be nice sheet metal that kind of favors where the headers are starting to come out. When they come out, then it'll transition into 4-inch exhaust. And that 4-inch exhaust will be cut into the running board, kind of like a Viper or a Cobra. I think the Viper was more reminiscent because it was kind of buried in there. The Cobra was just right at the bottom of the body, and the body already tapered off. So you'd have 4-inch exhaust as a detail, and it either exits here typical, or it just buries back off and it exits somewhere awesome. So that's what to expect. The other thing that has to go on here, unlike the Range Rover, is we have to have some kind of roof scoop. It's just, that's why I didn't want to taper the roof. It's already got a really nice kind of arc in the drip rail, but something has to happen where we're directing air because we cannot fit a radiator up front. It's just not enough room. We can fit auxiliary coolers, but we cannot fit the radiator. So that's the entry on this thing. If you guys have comments, you have questions, any general fabrication or construction questions about this build specifically, leave a comment below. If there's something you want to see more of, I haven't been able to shoot a lot of the process on this because it's just, we're running and gunning here. It's, as far as the transition goes into the new facility, everybody's working on stuff. Luke is working on stuff, and then he's working on the shop, and there's just messes, and then when the guys go home, I'm doing stuff outside, getting other things ready. So just been lacking on being able to step back and take the time to shoot the process. And the best we can do right now is just keep you up to date on the updates until we have more structure or we're more stable, and that's where we're at. So welcome Willie's Wagon. We're calling it the War Wagon right now. I would love to come up with a nice feminine name for it. I got to kind of get with Dan about that. It's sometimes you can pull off names, and then sometimes you got to be careful because dudes are like, hey, that's my ex-wife, man. Hey, that's my wife's blah blah. I know, like, it just, some names you got to vet everything. But I think end of the day for this thing, we're gonna look for like an Art Deco, like a really timeless name. Something with heritage to it that would be period correct for when this thing was constructed. Hope you enjoy. Look forward to more of this.